Elon Musk has said he is a free speech absolutist. Unfortunately, his new CEO doesn't appear to be that way. Let's get into this Twitter stuff, man, because they are finding their way into a lot of people's bad spaces. It seems like it was going so well for a little bit. You know, Elon comes in talking about free speech and I'm going to allow this to be a free speech platform. We're going to compete with everybody and we're going to allow monetization, and now people are getting paid and yippity yay. Melanie, are you part of that monetization program on Twitter yet?
Yeah, I am. I just enrolled in it though, because I didn't even really look into it at first, and then everyone's like, "Oh, look at this! Look what I got paid! Look what I got paid!" I'm like, I guess I'll do this."
What do you need? 10,000 followers to do that?
I don't know you needed a certain amount of reach. I think they just lowered that though, like yesterday, to like you need 5 million reach or something within the past 3 months.
Okay.
I don't know all of the requirements, but yeah. I mean, that's the thing is people shouldn't get too excited about it, because unless you just have an astronomical reach, you're really not going to be making that much money. And I definitely am not going to encourage people who, just because you get accepted into it, don't spend your life away on Twitter.
Yeah.
You'd make more working at McDonald's.
I will say this. The Twitter monetization thing is really interesting, because you see videos that blow up, or tweets that blow up that are screen caps of other tweets or stolen videos. Like, and this goes back to YouTube has this like overreaching copyright system. But when you see people take clips of podcasts and they'll post them on Twitter or X or whatever it is, and those blow up. Guess who's not making that money? That podcast, right? It's somebody else monetizing the podcast. So somebody taking clips of the Joe Rogan podcast and posting it out there. They're the ones going to be making that money potentially. I don't know, but either way. So Twitter's been doing a lot of interesting things that has kind of turned people's heads, and it's pissed off a lot of people. Obviously, there's well, you can't just allow anybody to speak whatever they want, and that's Elon Musk has said he is a free speech absolutist. Unfortunately, his new CEO doesn't appear to be that way, as they have brought in CEO Linda Yaccarino, I guess is her name, and they had a Twitter Spaces yesterday, and she announced a new policy called freedom of speech, not reach. And I thought we'd listen to a few seconds of this. Melanie, I know you got this because I saw your reaction to this, but let's go and listen to this. And Blabs, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm pretty sure we're all going to be on the same page here, but let's hear what she has to say.
Since acquisitions,
we
have built brand safety and content moderation tools that have never existed before at this company. And we've introduced a new policy, to your specific point about hate speech, called freedom of speech, not reach. So if you're going to post something that's illegal or against the law, you're gone. Zero tolerance.
Your thoughts on that statement? You post something illegal or against the law, you're gone. Just general thoughts, Melanie?
I think if it's against the law, that's fair. Like, yeah, I mean,
yeah, if it's illegal and against the law, that's fair.
Everything here, I think, sounds fair up to this point. And Elon said, when he talks about free speech, he said, as long as it abides by the local laws and regulations of where you live, right? Then he's cool with it. So let's continue.
But more importantly, if you're going to post something that is lawful, but it's awful, you get labeled.
Okay. That's a really important sentence, because number one, what is awful? Who determines what awful is?
Exactly.
And number two, you get labeled? You mean you get like a Star of David put on you? You get what does that mean? You're labeled. And how do you remove that label?
An actual shadow ban. Yeah.
Which is no better than what Twitter was before.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like during COVID, the mandatory, like the conversation about mandatory vaccines and stuff like that. Man, a lot of us who were speaking out back then against the mandates and all that, oh, who's to say something else can't happen? And they like try to pull that again. Like, oh, this is awful. This is dangerous. This is misinformation. Just look at how I just saw on Twitter today where it's like, oh yeah, doctors are allowed to prescribe ivermectin for COVID patients now. Well, back during the height of things, they were getting, this was called dangerous, you know? So it's just like the science keeps changing all the time. So when you have this, oh, awful, awful, someone just determining, oh, this is awful, that's awful, something like that can happen again.
Right. And I think you go back to whether it's the science, whether it's the way we think about race or sex or whatever. Go back to, you know, the golden example is always like Blazing Saddles, right? Let's say somebody was to post a clip, a 30-second clip of Blazing Saddles on Twitter. Is that awful content, or is it awfully hilarious content? Right. And once again, who is the jury? Who's the judge when it comes to these things? Is it Elon? Is it Linda, the CEO of Twitter? And who's making these decisions? And
who's hiring these people to enforce it? Like, are they going to be, you know, unbiased when they look at stuff, or are they going to be a certain political leaning and, you know, shun people who are still law-abiding citizens and they say something that you don't like? Who's going to enforce that? Like, it's literally saying law-abiding, but we don't like it, so we're going to slap a label on it. Like, why?
Right.
That makes no sense.
Abomination brings up a really good point over on Rumble with the Rumble rant. It says one state is already trying to make, quote, offensive speech illegal. If this passes, Twitter can use it as justification to call everything, quote, illegal. The First Amendment is absolute. And I obviously agree with that statement.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of hate speech, right? It's still speech. Like, my thought on all of this is that let people speak. Let them say whatever they want to say, because ultimately what's going to happen is if people are idiots, it's going to be, people are going to see it and they're going to go, that guy's an idiot. He's a wacko. He's crazy. I don't want to associate with that guy, you know?
Yeah, that's my thoughts on the whole misinformation thing too, because some people are like, oh, well, misinformation, this is dangerous. You're going to be hurting people. Well, if somebody tells you to drink dishwashing liquid, you can use your brain and say, wait a minute, that does not sound good for you. Let's not do that. Like even with the Tide Pod challenge that people were joking about, they wanted to act like this was a widespread thing, but it actually wasn't. It was more of a meme than anything. But we have brains. And if people are too dumb to use them and they're going to try every little thing that people suggest, then don't be on the internet.
Well, I mean, that's where we're moving to the point to where, you know, I could say, like, you could be talking about Care Bear splabs, right? I could be like, that's awful. You know, awful is a very subjective thing. And then when it comes to speech, there's no subjectivity to it. Right, you can't. Like as Abomination said, it is an absolute thing. You should be able to say whatever you want, because someone will ultimately find something that you say offensive. And whether it's, you know, rules in Texas or rules in Michigan or rules in Afghanistan, right? It's going to be very hard for X or Twitter to enforce all the rules and laws of these different regions, countries, states, whatever it may be. Obviously, you know, the crazy thing about it is Twitter, most of its users are outside of the United States. So it'll be interesting to see if me as a user in Texas says something, if they'll be able to be reached in Paris or whatever, you know, because the rules in Dallas may be different than the rules in wherever, you know, London. You know, as we saw yesterday, or there was the viral clip of the 16-year-old, as Spoonie says, an autistic 16-year-old got arrested for telling the cops she looked like a lesbian, like her lesbian nana here in England. So we can't say too much.
Wow.
Yeah.
See that clip, Melanie?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much described perfectly. She was 16 years old. She's autistic. Yeah. She has some issues with people touching her, and she kind of would. It's like a sensory overload type of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a cop who came in, and she had short hair. She's, you know, a decade ago it would have been described as butch, right? With like kind of the bob the bob haircut, and 16-year-old autistic girl just said, like, she kind of looks like she has an aunt that's a lesbian,
right?
And like, it's one of those things where it's like she was just saying, oh, she kind of looks like her, who is also a lesbian, and the cop took offense to it, and they arrested the 16-year-old girl.
Wow.
For hate speech. So that's where we're at. Yeah, I mean, that would, you should do a reaction to that on your
Doesn't
show.
that kind of make the cop homophobic?
I don't know.
You don't like it? You're arrested.
Oh my gosh. Dude comes in with the Rumble rant over on Rumble, obviously. He says the problem is that different countries have different laws, and these big companies never put the resources into making sure Americans are ruled by American laws. We get affected by EU laws. It's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I think with certain things, like I know on Instagram, for example, if you play a certain song or use a certain song in a reel, it's like, oh, this is banned in this country because this song isn't allowed there or something. So it's just it won't take it off for everywhere, but just those specific regions.
It says it'll be blocked in a list of countries, and you can appeal it, and then usually just they allow it afterwards, and then 6 months later they'll be like, oh, this has been blocked again. I'm like, then why did you let me do it last time?
Right.
They just keep sending the appeal back. I was like, all right, here you go.